The Trump administration's 180 from DEI, or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion initiatives, seems to have leaked into the private sector as well. One reason? A change of emphasis in the kinds of cases the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has been tasked with going after. With a change in leadership and policy, what can we expect to see from the commission? For some insight, I spoke with Carol Warner. She's the editor of the publication HR Morning.
Starting with the changes, the first thing, President Trump came in and he issued a bunch of executive orders on day one. Keeping with the EEOC, those orders are mostly related to DEI and gender ideology. With the EEOC, President Trump let the general counsel, Carla Gilbride, go, which was totally expected. What wasn't as expected is that two commissioners who had time left on their terms were also let go. So that was very unexpected. And it's actually never happened before. So there might be some legal challenges there. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. Since the report came out, Andrea Lucas has been named the acting chair of the EEOC. And that's expected because she has been a vocal critic of DEI initiatives, so it would make sense that she would lead the EEOC in a way that aligns with President Trump's executive orders. Shortly after she was named acting chair, she released a statement and she said, she's looking forward to restoring the even-handed enforcement of employment law, civil rights laws for all Americans, and she outlined some priorities. The very first thing that she listed was rooting out unlawful DEI-motivated race and sex discrimination. She also mentioned protecting Americans from anti-American national origin discrimination. And then she also mentioned some plans to maybe roll back some transgender rights. So this is a very different shift to what we see in the report and what the previous administration did.
We had, and this is all on the back of EEOC just releasing kind of its, I believe it's an annual report of all the work that it had been doing. Was there a lot in the DEI field that it was taking an initiative with? I mean, obviously, it's kind of its bread and butter when it comes to workplace discrimination. But what kinds of activities exactly is Ms. Lucas talking about when she says even-handedness? Had there been a lot of DEI-related enforcement from EEOC over the past 4 years?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. The report that I looked at focused on fiscal year 2024, so I'm going to limit it to that scope. The main focus for the EEOC's efforts in fiscal year 2024 was handling discrimination complaints. Discrimination was 70%, I think, or nearly 60% of the lawsuits, and that's Title VII. But of those discrimination complaints, sex discrimination was the top one, and that appeared in nearly half the lawsuits. Other claims were disability discrimination and then retaliation claims. Those were the three highest priorities on the list of the previous administration's plans for the EEOC. That's what the previous administration focused on. Now, with this shift under new leadership with Andrea Lucas, what she's saying is that she is planning to focus on more of the, quote, reverse discrimination claims. The things that she's pointing out as her priorities are rooting out what she's calling unlawful DEI, and that would be in line with promoting someone just because they were a woman or a person of color or maybe not an American-born citizen. That's what she's saying that she wants to focus on. The EEOC's focus has always been to protect American workers from employment discrimination. So I don't think that anything has been going on that is allowing illegal DEI practices. It's just that this administration is focusing on moving from DEI to MEI, which is merit, excellence, and intelligence. So they want to move away from DEI and over into merit-based decisions, merit-based employment decisions.
And yeah, is that going to cause any, well, I guess what's harder to enforce, right? I mean, because you can kind of pinpoint, discrimination on terms of sex and race by a pattern of behaviors. If somebody doesn't get a promotion and they say, look at all this experience I have, is that going to be enough to bring in an actual case forward? I mean, what is the difference, I guess, in enforcing one compared to the other?
Well, I think in light of President Trump and Andrea Lucas's stance on DEI, I think we are likely to see a lot more discrimination claims focused on reverse discrimination or, cases to root out illegal DEI. I think that in an employment situation, there's always this idea of you have to make judgment calls. You have to look at a person's abilities, their history, their track record. And then it's important, I think, for employers to document the choices that they make. Why one person got promoted over another, or why one person was hired over another. It's about making good decisions, documenting those decisions, and explaining it every step of the way so that you have a paper trail. So that if somebody comes back and asks you, you're not just, it was my gut decision. You can look at the documentation that you've created and say, well, I think that this person was the better choice because they have 10 years experience in radio broadcasting, whereas the other person only had 4. You need that documentation to defend business decisions, whether it's an investigation by the EEOC or whether it goes to court.
You guessed that I only have 10 years radio broadcasting. I've got a little bit more. All right. And so I wanted to just pick your brain on the role of EEOC has played, now and over the last few years of actually implementing maybe not a policy from the White House, but what an administration would like to see from the business community. Obviously, President Trump and President Biden have very divergent views. Has the EEOC ever been utilized, I guess, in kind of forcing the hand of the business community through enforcement mechanisms rather than, enacting a regulation that says you must do this, this, and this? It has, the choice of who leads the EEOC, I don't want to use the term weaponization or anything like that, or any of these crazy words that heighten things, but, just utilizing it in a way to try and get what they want from the business community.
I have not seen previous administrations use an executive order to explicitly tell the EEOC to go after something like DEI in the private sector. However, I recognize that, presidents appoint acting chairs and leadership in agencies, and there is usually a partnership of them working together. I think that President Trump came into the White House ready to go, and he might have been a little bit more forceful than some prior administrations. So I don't think we're comparing apples and oranges here. We're kind of in a situation where there's a lot of unprecedented things going on. So it's really just a wait and see approach.
Yeah, not to mention the removal of any dissenters, really, which is kind of going against what the